Café Anyway. Hey.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's Mike Matthews. Welcome to FF episode 2763. 2763 here at Café Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Somewhere in Podcastro Valley, and I think I'm in the wrong business. But then again, what is this? It's podcasting, and some people make money, and that would be some people that once were thought to be funny because he used to be a comedian. Joe Rogan, he got a new Spotify deal worth up to
Mike's Daily Podcast.
$250 million. This after, is it Bateman?
Mike's
Jason Bateman?
Daily
And
Podcast.
Will Arnett.
Yeah!
And that other guy, Sean Hayes? The three of them just got, for their podcast, they got something like $100 million. But then again, so you've got two cast members from Arrested Development and someone from Will and Grace, and they rake in that much, but it involves a lot of other things, apparently, that the money is for. But gosh, so if you have a brand name, a name that people have like, hey Mike, what have we seen you in other than things other than podcasting? What have we seen you in? Nothing. Oh, I sometimes walk down the street to get my steps in. And, well, there is the one little bizarre thing that I did when I was in radio. I'm still in radio, but when I was in country radio, I did a show called the Santa Fe Cafe. And I did that for 11 years, but that was eons ago. No one remembers it. But Joe Rogan, he did a thing called The Man Show, yes, after another podcaster, Adam Carolla, left, and Jimmy Kimmel, before he became a late night superstar. He took over the show, but Spotify has reached a deal with him. You know, Spotify tends to give money out to people that, I don't know, sometimes they don't really deserve it. For example,
And here's today's podcast picture.
The gal from Suits and the guy from the fella from the English Royalty, that couple, they gave him a bunch of money for a podcast that they never did. All they did in the podcasting world was pod fade. The podcast picture today is, and this is the one and only podcast that has the podcast picture and has been doing the podcast picture for every podcast since the beginning, since episode 1. It is a podcast picture of the beautiful lights above Hayward. The late great Basil the Boxer and I, in fact, we walked in Hayward before. We'd go on walks. There's some nice parks here and there. But dang, if you're trying to get up Mission, trying to drive down Mission early in the morning, forget about the 7 o'clock hour. The 7 o'clock hour, it is just backed up. Wow. Now, I drove down it just before 7, like late in the 6 o'clock hour, and I was okay. But 7 o'clock, and I'm guessing 8 o'clock is probably just as bad. So another Podcastro Valley said that he left like in the 8 o'clock hour, and it was really bad. If you're heading down to Fremont, it takes forever. But the point is that there's just, traffic all over the Bay Area, I guess is what I'm saying. And that Jeff Rogan's fresh deal, estimated to be worth as much as $250 billion over its multi-year term, involves an upfront minimum guarantee plus a revenue sharing agreement based on ad sales. So you got to buy the stuff that he's hawking on his podcast. Let's see, what products do I hawk on this show? Nothing! I got no sponsors. Just these wonderful people hanging out with me at Café Anyway. So now apparently I've got some competition in the amount of episodes Joe Rogan has done. He's done 2,200. I did not know that. And I've got 2,763. I'm just beating him by a little over 500. Dang. He said, cool conversations are a kind of mental nourishment.
The word of
The new deal is emblematic of a shifting economics in podcasting, which has matured in both audience reach and advertising spending since Rogan's last deal. Spotify is working to revise the terms of its deals with top talent so that shows are distributed on several platforms to maximize their audience and ad sales rather than requiring exclusivity. As YouTubers, they have to do the exclusivity thing. Their videos only run, well, the long form videos only run on YouTube. Some do the TikTok thing, but you don't have the long form with TikTok. So they struck their first deal with Joe Rogan in 2020 during its initial blitz into podcasting. It agreed to pay more. And you can listen to this podcast, by the way, on Spotify.
A fine article.
You silly, great, fat article.
I'm the one with the very simple blue and white logo that I drew myself that says Mike's Daily Podcast. It's not some weird AI created thing, which is what most people use these days for their logo. But yes, you'll find me and then you can listen to me on Spotify. But it agreed to pay more than $100 million to bring the Joe Rogan experience to Spotify exclusively in a bid to jumpstart podcast listening on its platform right there during COVID. The show has remained far and away the most popular podcast on Spotify, and Spotify is far and away the most listened to app for podcasts. If you want to listen to podcasts, got to listen to Spotify. Apparently, a lot of people do that. So Spotify spent heavily on podcasting in the format's early days to build large audiences from its biggest shows. While that early foray into podcasting proved costly, Spotify surpassed Apple to become the most popular podcast listening platform, which is interesting because basically Apple created the podcast because they created the iPod, which the name comes from. As we go outside of Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley.
Anyway.
The last place on earth. That story from the Wall Street Journal.
Much.
And anything else. I got to get ready because Kevin, addendum with Kevin, he's getting married tomorrow, and I have to get ready to dust off my suit.
The Fascinating Material Project.
FM Project.
And get ready for all of the fun that is going to take place mañana. Any other interesting thing? So January, did you know January was dry January? Has that been a thing? Was this the first year of that? Because I don't recall that ever happening before. February's hoped for deluge can't come soon enough for bud maker Abnebev and Constellation Brands.
And now we return you to our regularly scheduled program with Mike Matthews.
The amount of money spent on beer every year is $115 billion. However, it is times 6 that. Yes, it is 6 times that in the spirits market. Spirits.
Magnification.
21% of the drinking age U.S. adults said they plan to cut back on drinking this year in January. And that was up 6% from last year. 70% of dry January participants were drinking in healthier ways 6 months later. Maybe more than half.
Hey, kids.
18 to 26-year-olds in the U.S. said they hadn't drunk at all in the past 6 months.
It's me.
There is on TikTok the hashtag SoberCurious, and it had over 847 million views.
Don't rate me the clown.
NA Beers and Wine did nearly $18 billion in sales in 2022, but U.S. beer shipment hit a 24-year low last year. Just don't drink your beer out of a Stanley Cup. Because, as I was driving in, I had to do, and this all came from Rob Black. I produced his show this morning. I always produce his podcast, but I did produce his live radio show this morning, so I had to be there really early. And driving in, I decided, hey, I'll listen to some of the local Bay Area morning shows on the radio. That is something, well, in my business, in the radio business, it's very big with the if you have a good morning show, a big morning show with big ratings, you can make a lot of money. And they can go on to bigger, better things. You never know. So, but on the way, and I heard somebody talking about the Stanley Cups, not the thing that the hockey people win, but the wonderful cup that has been painted in such a way that people like it now, even though it's been around forever. And apparently it's the popular thing. I have a Yeti cup. I got it for Christmas. I had no idea. This is way before the craze started. So I love it because it keeps things insulated and keeps them at the temperature that you initially put them in at. So I don't know if I guess that's the big selling point for Stanley Cups, and that they come in colors, but that this is just something new. Everyone's discovering. It's bizarre, and it's a topic that takes up entirely too much time in media, so I'll stop. But definitely the morning shows talk about it. That's all they talk about. But I'm going to try to listen in more to what the morning shows are doing in radio. And I'm going to
ginormous.
See if I can't find something there that they're not doing.
Mike's out of left field recordings.
Recording everything captures actions that will never again be repeated.
We love you, Mike.
And hey, we're going to call somebody and make them think that it's the president. Let's punk them. Come on, here we go. Hello? Hey, everybody. Hey, this is Joe Biden. What? It's the president? Oh, my gosh. Oh. No, it's not. It's actually Mike and Muff in the morning.
Whoa. Mike's Matthewsman Park.
The front panel will close automatically. Please remain seated at all times.
Yes, that's Universal Music Group. They're going to cease licensing its music to TikTok.
The Cutting Corners Corner.
The Cutting Corners Corner.
TikTok and the music industry have been grappling with the rise of artificial intelligence, which can generate music and even mimic the voice of big artists. Universal Media has 3 issues. Appropriate compensation for our artists, like Taylor Swift needs to be any more compensated than she is. But for our artists and songwriters, protecting human artists from the harmful effects of AI and online sales and online safety for TikTok users, it says. It's finding a way to pay its artists and songwriters at a rate that is a fraction of the rate that similarly situated major social platforms pay. How did TikTok try to intimidate Universal Media Group? By selectively removing the music by developing artists while keeping on the platform audience-driving global stars. They have well over 1 billion users, and that serves as a free promotion and discovery vehicle for their talent. But Universal Music does not like them. So, and you know all about the record-breaking tickets for the Super Bowl. They cost something like, right now, an average of $12,700. And that, and 26% of the early buyers were from California, showcasing how strongly the Niner fans have come out of the gate for this championship matchup. Oh, and then still more talk about Taylor Swift and her guy. If they win the Super Bowl, if the Kansas Chiefs win, then he's going to take her to the 50-yard line and propose to her. That's the big talk. We'll see. That will make for an interesting Super Bowl, though, you have to admit. We would not have, this would, of course, the only thing you can think of when it comes to pop stars and Super Bowls, you instantly think of Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. And what was it? The Gate. It rhymes with Flipplegate. And the wardrobe malfunction, that's right. And all that craziness.
You will travel into the incredible universe.
But this will be something huge. I don't think we'll have wardrobe malfunction, but we'll see. The average retirement income in the U.S. Last year, the average monthly retirement income from Social Security, the average monthly retirement income was $1,827. Yeah, so it's Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes. It's the Smartless podcast. Oh, no, it's not going to Spotify. It's going to Sirius XM. Sirius is in a serious battle with Spotify. And Sirius, you can't hear Mike's Daily Podcast on Sirius, but Sirius XM. But Sirius XM owns Pandora now, and I am on Pandora. Just saying. But they are, hate that expression, just saying. But I just said it. So the Smartless podcast, Sirius XM is paying $100 million to them. Sirius XM subscribers will get early access to Smartless and other podcasts such as Jack, Jill, and Will, Brad Dates, and Owned. Oh, I guess that's all other type podcast things that those three guys do. Hey, I was a huge Arrested Development fan in the early years. And then after a while, that is it Mitchell Hurwitz that came up with that, and that rapid fire way of joke, callback, joke, and the shaky camera and all that. It at some point you get burned out on it. But hey, it's pretty amazing. Outside of Café Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Kombucha. Oh, geez. Something just blew up in my other job where there's people, hired help, that get confused. And then the people that's trying to communicate. It's very difficult sometimes to make all the important things happen that are supposed to happen. Especially when it's happening at 8 o'clock at night and I've been up since, well, and probably the hired help has been up probably longer than I have. But yeah. All right. It all worked out. We don't need emails from people that are all snarky and persnickety. Calm down, people. I hate getting into it. Some of these emails are so rude. What is that? What is that? Outside of Café Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth. Look who's here. Hello, Michael Masters, Madame Rootabega. I don't email at all. Ooh. Do you like to write with paper and pen? Yes. Do you like to put a stamp on it and send it off to someone? Yes. Do you like to be persnickety? No. Good. Look who else is here.
Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino, the parking attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
Mike, we don't even know who those guys are that you were talking about on those podcast thingies.
Yeah, who are they? Do you know that? They're people
Magnification.
that were popular in the podcast world. They actually, some were, well, Will Arnett did really well with the Lego Movie. And I don't know, some of the other ones. Joe Rogan, I guess, was really big with Fear Factor. But then, I don't know, now they've just excelled in the world with podcasting. It's fascinating. Okay, if you would like to call in and comment about anything we covered on this wonderful podcast today, here's the phone number.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640.
And with more ways to find out about Mike's Daily Podcast, yes, it's Mike's Daily Podcast, and ways to find out all things Mike's Daily Podcast and to contact me other ways, here's A-Frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com.
Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com.
See you tomorrow. Bye!